Hi, my name is Ronald, and it's a pleasure to host this special podcast. We are filming this from
Zurich
PZF. What is that?
at Point Zero Forum, the forum for policymakers and the industry to come together and discuss the important topics of our industry.
And today we have the king of AI, the Sultan, the Emperor. You're like the man in fashion now, right?
I happen to be the man in fashion because I am interested in artificial intelligence, and what a great area to be interested in. Genuinely, there is a lot happening in this space.
Two questions. Why is there a lot happening in this space? And secondly, how did you become so famous?
Yes. Well, I've become famous because of you, so thank you for having me on the podcast, so I appreciate that. Why now, though, is an interesting question.
Yeah.
We always talk about this. You know yourself, we've had AI winters, and then you can call them AI summers when there's a bit more funding going around the place to get the AI up and running. But we've had these a few times in the past. What's different now is, or we hope, I think every time people said it's different this time and put lots of money into it. But this time I think we're genuinely different. And the reason is, we have plenty of data available in digital format. It is the raw material needed. We were always missing this. We have plenty of compute available. Cloud providers or other hardware providers are really there for you to scale your solutions. The open source community is innovating at breathtaking speed in the AI space. And what I mean by that is any model that's developed and published is worked upon to improve. These three things alone, there are many other factors, but these three things alone are making this whole area of AI an amazing place to be involved in, both from a technical, policy, end user perspective. And the outcome of all of that, if you don't believe me, is generative AI, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
We're definitely going to talk about generative AI. Huy, he said those famous words that if you're in financial services, as long as you and I have been, are very scary. This time is different.
And this time is different.
This time is different. So, really, is it different, and should we be scared?
Yeah, I think it's different. It's different because, as you remember, 5 years ago, we launched this course of AI in finance.
I remember.
Where basically we worked with a lot of professionals in the industry to get them to understand what is AI, but specifically machine learning. And it was already really performant at that time, where there were a lot of different use cases in financial services where we could implement AI, or more specifically machine learning, from, for example, credit scoring to fraud detection to customer service. Already very, very good. But this time, we're going past the specific use cases, enterprise AI that requires a lot of resources, into consumer AI, where everybody, you and me, we can use this technology, which is a bit magic, and which I think it is, because just an anecdote, a few years ago when we launched the course, we called it AI in finance. A lot of our experts said it's not accurate. We should really call it machine learning in finance. It's not really AI. Today we don't have that debate anymore. Today we wouldn't be surprised if next year we have something which is as smart or smarter than a human. So yes, I think that this time it's different.
And should we be worried? Does this keep you awake at night?
It does actually. It does. I'm perhaps one of the person who of course CFTE is all about technology. So I love technology. Very early on we said AI is single most important technology impacting financial services. It was a few years ago. It does worry me today. It does worry me because we are seeing an exponential growth of capabilities of AI, which means that at some point, very, very soon, not in 5 years, but very soon, we're going to have capabilities which are more performant than humans. At some point, we'll have AI which are more performant. And at the end of the day, we will all use AI because it's easy, because it's convenient, etc. And we'll do things which perhaps we shouldn't do. So it's more a question of us, humans, using a technology which will at some point be just super powerful.
But most technology is already, sorry, it sounds like a dumb question, but most technology is already more powerful than humans. The calculator we had at school is faster than humans. The automobile is faster than I can run. So what's special about AI, generative AI, that makes you worried?
I think the impact that you can make as a person.
Okay.
Which is before, for example, if I wanted, let's say 10 years ago, I wanted to make a big impact on AI, and let's say a PhD from MIT, a big group, a lot of technology, money, etc. Even 5 years ago, it required a lot of resources. Today, I could be a student in India, for example, and make a huge impact on potentially billions of people. So it's really the accessibility of the technology to anyone.
But isn't that like a really powerful romantic story that I can be a kid in India making impact on billions of people. I don't need to go to MIT because obviously name dropping at MIT there.
Did you?
Just so you got that.
You must tell us more about that.
He's a smart guy. He went to MIT, but isn't that right? Are you worried, Prague? Is that why you're going grey? Is that why you're like?
I'm going grey.
I mean, it's a Kumi look, right?
Yes.
It's a Kumi look, yeah.
I'm going grey not for fashion reasons, no, and not because of my family either. But no, I'm not the kind of guy that I think worries easily, to be honest. Okay, so
Are you worried?
No. Okay, and that's and I'll tell you why I'm not worried from the perspective of what this technology can do. I think we should be worried if we're going to get complacent, but I don't think we are complacent in this space. I think through forums like this or other forums, we are raising awareness of what it means in this space, and I think many people are coming together. This particular forum and the Point Zero forum is amazing. We have regulators, we have large financial services firms, we have government officials more generally, all at the same table, actively and openly discussing this technology. So that gives me a lot of hope. Now, when this technology sort of progresses really quickly, there can be gaps can emerge. That's what we should be worried about. It's the rate of change. It's not that we are changing, this is moving. The rate of change needs to be. So instead of banning things or getting worried, the regulators should accelerate their thinking. The banks should accelerate, like ourselves, we have accelerated our thinking despite going through a large piece of work on ensuring that we use AI responsibly very recently, a full thorough review of our processes. We are now doing it again for generative AI, because we know that the incremental risk that this brings, we need to address. So we just need to be on our toes, and if we keep on our toes, we're in good space, is what I think.
And the policy response, or the regulatory response, I mean, you've had dialogue here with regulators. It looks like regulators in different parts of the world or in different places, no surprise when it comes to AI, like many new emerging technologies. Our impression is like our friends in Singapore were doing this. It's at least providing guidance and dialogue with the ecosystem half a dozen years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Now we're beginning to see draft legislation coming out of some countries, others have quote banned it. Could you just look at a high level overview of where different policymakers are?
You're right to point out MAS. I have huge respect for MAS. They have been one of the first sort of regulatory bodies to do a lot of stuff in this space, starting with their FEED principles in 2018, and they've continued to build upon that over successive years, most recently coming out with a checklist for the FEED principles that makes it easy to sort of review those principles. So that's a really good example of how sort of right guidance in a timely manner can dictate how you go down this path. So having that dialogue directly or through your principles or guidance documents is always good. The EU, as you know, is one of the big players in this space. In fact, arguably leading this space by coming up with an EU AI Act. Now there are many discussions in this, okay, pros and cons of this act. The UK is looking at what the EU has done over the last few years and trying to figure out how similar or different they will want to be. But ultimately that EU AI Act is going to have a positive impact, because we need that sort of regulation that everyone adheres to. Many other countries that I'm not mentioning now are very active in this space. There needs to be some level of dialogue that aligns on the basic principles here, for sure. But then there are very specific things that each country should be free to adopt on themselves, but we should, more alignment is always good.
And what are the basic principles that we should align on?
Well, the FEED principles are a good example. We're all concerned about bias. We're all concerned about misinformation that can be spread through these. The key thing here is two things in my mind when we talk about, we use big terms, ethics, bias, explainability. You know, we're worried that things could happen, it could take over the world, all these things. They arise from just two things in my mind. One is the complexity of the underlying algorithm, which means we don't understand what's happening under the hood. If we don't understand, we can't sort of know what is going to come out the other end. So this lack of sort of knowledge or know-how leads to all these downstream words, tasks, concerns, and activities that we really need to push. So I think the explainability is one key aspect, getting under the hood, and then working closely collectively to come up with some basic rules around accountability, transparency, explainability. All of these things form the basis, and then you could work vertically up in any direction.
Huy, what do you say to that? I mean, Dr. Prag is basically saying you're worrying too much if you don't understand it.
So I fully agree that, for example, in large organizations like Citi or for regulators, there is a lot of effort that will be made to use AI responsibly. So I have absolutely no doubt that AI will be used to, for example, be more efficient or to provide better services to clients. I have absolutely no doubt about it. My worry is much more around two different areas. The first one, of course, as an education platform, you can see the positive and negative side of it. Positive side, almost anyone now have access to amazing technology. Barriers to entry is much lower. As an entrepreneur, this is amazing. You can do pretty much anything you like. Anywhere in the world, you can have access to things which you couldn't access before. But for example, coming from a bank, what AI can do today is almost the same job as an analyst. As someone who starts as a graduate and becomes an analyst, etc.
AI is similar to AI is similar to a pretty good MBA associate, right?
Exactly. So what happens? What happens to this new generation of analysts? If at some point it makes more sense for an MD to have basically 5 different tools rather than a team of 5 analysts. And this is not just a very, very small example, but well, we're moving to a level where AI now has the capabilities of an average person, or even more than average. If you ask me to compete against an AI and write a thesis in open banking, I'm not certain at all that I'll do something which is better than an AI. So there's real questions about the whole knowledge economy that we've had for the last 20 years, which is all of that very well-paid jobs and people doing things which could not be replicated. Suddenly, it can be replicated. This is what we have at CFTE in terms of we're calling that the unbundling of human jobs. In the same way as we had the unbundling of financial services, where suddenly you had a lot of different startups trying to compete with incumbents. Here we are the incumbents. As people were the incumbents, and there's a lot of machines which are trying to do the same in terms of doing better than me than for research or for translation, for etc. So there's a real question in terms of jobs, and that will come. I think that will come.
And do you think jobs in financial services, as a result of this unbundling, we're going to see a collapse in the jobs that we have today? What's your sort of hypothesis?
So if you think of unbundling, we know the innovation process of unbundling. What it leads to is cheaper, better, faster. And cheaper, better, faster means that for the customer it's good. The customer being in that case the bank, for example, or the employer, it's good. But for the incumbent, which is not the person, that means margin compression, that means more competition. Basically, you're competing with more than just other people, you're starting to compete with machines, and that's going to have an impact also on your wages, on your salaries. So I think this is the trend that we're going to see, and that means that as people, there's a real question of what is your added value compared to a machine. And here we're starting to think more about that could be around your soft skills, your way to collaborate, manage projects, etc. But I think this is a very important trend which we need to think of, because it's happening very, very quickly now. You're starting to see companies, starting by the tech companies, having much fewer people and starting to see how they can, for example, leverage on AI.
I wanted to agree with that, because one of the things we need more organizations like yourselves, because training, I think, is the key aspect of this entire.
Is this a sponsored plug for his company?
No, I don't have. We haven't met before, have we?
No, we haven't.
But there you go. So it cannot be a sponsored plug. But the point is, absolutely, we need more training. There is undoubtedly the biggest threat here. If I did want to stay awake about something, it would be that people don't have enough knowledge about the tools they are using on a daily basis, especially the decision makers in our world that are using this. They need to get more educated, and they need to get more educated through the various offerings there are. One, to do their job better. Myself as well, I have to keep getting myself educated on a daily basis. I was reading a research paper yesterday that talked about, and this is very important, it was talking about how the relationship between a data set and the model size sort of works. It's not a fact that large models and less data are better than small models with huge data. These things make a huge impact on where we're going. As an example, so we all need to continuously get educated, and organizations like these we need more of.
So are you worried, like Huy, about we're going to have like a great sucking sound in the job market,
No.
the white collar job market?
No, sir, no.
Our jobs are going to
No.
we're all going to become, I don't know, yoga instructors.
No,
like our friend
that is
Dave.
I would recommend becoming a yoga instructor any day, but not because you're worried about your job. Okay?
No?
No, I don't think so.
But that's what he's saying. I'm going to be replaced by a machine.
He's not. I don't think he's saying that. He's saying get educated so you don't get replaced by a machine.
Okay.
It's completely different. No, the point is we always worry about jobs. Every revolution, our jobs are going. Have they gone? No. Do we? You know, you yourself make some points in the report you have recently released.
Nice plug. I like it.
Right? You have recently released some excellent
With your help.
points.
With your help.
Sure.
Indeed.
So I'm plugging myself is what you're telling me.
yourself, yeah.
The point is,
Yeah.
you make really good examples of how the job market actually hasn't changed when you really think it's going to change. Most obviously, it's going to change. It actually never changes. Having said that, jobs will be different from what they are now. And you guys, but that is nothing to be afraid of, sir. You are afraid if you're a government official or if you're looking at your entirety of your economy. You should worry in the sense that you need to prepare for this. You cannot sit back. Computer science should be taught much younger. I don't mean full Java programming or assembly program, but concepts of working more closely with the computer.
Doesn't generative AI handle all this? I don't need to worry about programming because it'll do the programming. It's like 20 years ago, if you were an ambitious parent in New York or London, you'd be like, kids learn Mandarin. Oh, generative AI can do it for us all.
True.
Maybe in 10 years time, be like, kids learn Hindi, I don't know, but
you don't need to,
generative AI can just do it for you.
Some things you don't agree.
So what are the skills we need to learn?
Yeah, agree. Generative AI could do lots of things for you, but you still, depending on where in the job market you end up, you have to know a little bit more than what's happening. So, as in, you drive a car. How much do you need to know about your car to drive it? Actually, apologies. You drive a nice car, no doubt. I'm guessing. Would you like to share with us what you drive?
No, very little. I only drive once every 3 months. That's also
It
a
is
very
that
bad
expensive.
example.
Your story is saying great, it didn't land, but...
Okay, let's start again. Cut out of this. I drive a nice car. Oh, sorry, nice car.
Nice car.
No, I'm joking.
You just had a new car today,
I
right?
did.
Nice, can I say it? Nice Tesla?
Yes, I'm taking one for the environment here. Okay, that's the way I like to put it. No, but my point is, depending on where in the job market you end up, you need to know more or less about this. We can't just blindly use tools that are core to our day job. If the core part of your day job is looking at lots of research and summarizing it, I don't think it's good enough to say, oh, Gen AI did that for me. If the core part of your job is interacting or building systems, is it okay for you to say Gen AI wrote this code, I'm good with it? No.
You can understand it. It's a bit like,
have to understand it.
We said cars, I fly a lot. And the other day I said to someone as a joke, I don't know how this A380 works. Turned out he was an expert on aviation. He spent the next half an hour explaining.
Yeah, exactly.
I have now a basic understanding, so next time, like in a couple of days I'm going to fly back to Dubai, be looking at that engine.
Exactly.
I know now at a very high level how that engine works.
And I feel sorry for the person who will be sitting next to you on your flight back, because you will be explaining this stuff to them. Listen, I know how this stuff works. Let me tell you. No, or they might be excited. Oh, sorry.
No
You'll be all on you. He'll have a hole. He'll be with the pilot.
Last question. If you were a kid, I know you were a kid at heart, but
A long time ago. It was I can't even remember that far.
You're 21. You're 21, leaving college now, or about to leave college. What would you tell your 21-year-old self to prepare for this AI world? How am I best going to equip myself? And not like you were, because you've got this PhD and this stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, don't be afraid of technology. Don't fret. Don't be worried that it is taking your jobs. You're already down the wrong path if you think you have nothing to do. It's all done for you. Get stuck in.
Get stuck.
Just 3 words. Get stuck in.
To what?
To what's happening around you, including this technology. Be interested in computers. Be interested in programming languages more generally. Be interested in these products and services that are coming out. A large part of your day job will be supported by these technologies, so it's better to get to know them.
Awesome. So Nike has Just Do It. Dr. Prag has Get stuck in.
It's not as good as Just Do It, but
get stuck in.
Let's refine it for the next
refine it.
I think that needs a bit of marketing.
We need a bit of marketing. This is where you come in.
You get the last word. You're 21 again.
So I think it goes back to our framework, which is SHIME. It has to be SHIME. And SHIME is a framework that says that And when we think about skills, we tend to think a lot about hard skills, but we think that we need more than hard skills, and that's S for soft skills, H for hard skills, I for industry knowledge, M for mindset, and E for experience. And I think it's important because when we're at school, we tend to do a lot of hard skills because it's very easy to assess, data science, etc. But the reality is that we need much more than that. Soft skills, communication, collaboration, human skills, I think are starting to be much more important. Hard skills, of course, whatever you do, it doesn't have to be data science. It could be biology, economics, or whatever that you're interested in.
Inquisitive.
Exactly. Industry knowledge, I think this will be a big difference between us and a machine, which is really understanding your industry, the way people, the ecosystem, the different players. And most importantly, I would say the mindset. Mindset, because we know we're in a world which will keep changing all the time. So if you have kids who are comfortable with change, that's great. For them, that's part of the journey. Whereas in our system at the moment, we tend to be afraid of change. So, so having this mindset of, let's call that the mindset of an entrepreneur, wherever you are, I think that could be interesting.
That's a much better answer.
Mindset of an entrepreneur,
but much longer.
Get stuck in and just do it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you.